What kind of book should you write and why? Now, we often just classify books very simply into fiction and non-fiction. And, often if we drill down into the why we want to write a book, we get the right kind of book that we want to write, if that makes any sense. So let's just explore some of the different kinds of books that you might want to write and why this might suit your brand and your business. Now, for me, it's always very important that we try to align our books with our brand and our business. But sometimes, we want to write books for completely different reasons, and that is equally perfect. The first book is the how-to manual. Many years ago, I worked in the IT industry and I wrote lots of training manuals. But, in those days, we sent them off to the local printer who bound them and people got given back an A4 document. But over the years, I've seen more and more people, people are perhaps selling software, maybe cameras, that kind of thing, producing beautiful books which are how-to manuals. So it might be that you're a trainer, some kind of consultant, and you train in these kind of things. And so you would write a how-to book, which is a training manual in this way. So, a recipe book. Now, you can think about recipe books in lots of different ways. So let's say you have a personal story that you want to share. So your recipe book might be your story and some of the recipes that you've used to perhaps heal something that you've had. It might be that you're writing a recipe book because you want to preserve the recipes from, let's say, your grandmother. And so you might have some of your grandmother's stories, some photos, and then the recipe books. Now, it might be that you write the recipe book for this, leaving this legacy thing to hand on the recipes of, like we said, your grandmother. And it may never be part of your brand or your business. But actually, when you think about it, you might be we'll use the trainer analogy again. You might be a trainer, but actually people know you as a trainer of X, but actually they also know you for your love of raw chocolate, and your raw chocolate recipe book actually is part of your brand. So have a think about how a recipe book might serve to build your brand and maybe create some kind of legacy. Now, one of my favourite recipe books, I need to get the title right, is I have a book called How Not to Die, and the recipe book is called How Not to Die Recipe Book. And what I like about this is the recipes are very imaginative and they're all very delicious. So it's one of my go-to recipe books. So what the author's done is they have their non-fiction book, and then they have this recipe book that goes alongside. So there's many ways that we can look at using recipe books. The next category is the self-help non-fiction. And, that might be something on personal branding, how to write a book, healing trauma, training dogs, renovating furniture, a multitude of different subjects. So, I've kind of clubbed all of these together. Whereas if you go to Amazon or whatever your favorite bookstore is, you'll find them classified by genres. So it might be business or mind, body, spirit. The essence is that each of these books have helped supported the reader on a journey, and they differ from a manual. So the manual is about instructions, and the self-help non-fiction, I believe, is very much about sharing more of your knowledge, your skills and your experiences, and you're using this book very much to build that brand and that business, and you're paying attention to what the book is going to bring you. And it truly has to be the right book for right now. So, an example here is that myself and 3 other colleagues wrote a book on executive leadership. Now, at the time that we wrote it, and I can't remember what year it was, it might have been 2015, it was very, executive leadership was very, very relevant for all of us. And then my life changed. So although I'm very proud of this book, it's currently not as relevant for me as it is for the other authors. And then by comparison, I have a book on how to plan and write a non-fiction book. And I started that book in probably 2012, 2013, and it's still very, very relevant for me. So I always look at, in the self-help non-fiction, is, consider what you love doing, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And really think about, what do you want to be known for, which is sustainable in, let's say, 2, 5, or maybe 10 years. So the next book is the Memoir. I adore Memoir. I really love reading about any kind of people's lives. I think the first memoir I ever bought was about Maria Callas's life. And you get really emotionally involved in this slice of life. And again, you might write a memoir because it's to help with your brand, but you might write it to heal trauma. You might want to share about kind of finding yourself, maybe an adventure that you've been on, or maybe the memoir is written as a dedication to a cause, something that you're really passionate about. And I think that when you find yourself in a life-changing position, it's very empowering and healing to write your story, not only for yourself but for your intended reader. And these kind of books tend to be written by people who use them to support their perhaps their speaking careers, or to raise awareness around a very important issue. But equally, you can use memoir to support your business in some way. Biography is when you write a story about somebody else. Now, you may be a fan of a particular band. You may have a family member who was held as a prisoner in a prisoner of war camp. You may have been on a heroic journey. I met someone recently, and they actually were born in a prisoner of war camp, and they wanted to write a book not about their journey, but about how their parents ended up meeting in the prisoner of war camp. So that's an example of an incredible biography. So I see these books that they are about preserving history, surrounding events, and they might not particularly support your business, but I think they will be extremely rewarding. Now, personal story. Now, I've kind of separated that from the self-help non-fiction, because I very much see personal story where you're charting a period of your life and you're telling the story, but you are offering research, practical experience and advice. So often in a self-help book, people often will use case studies as opposed to their personal story. So I've really only separated it on the basis is that you're going to pour your heart and your story into the book. Now, it could be a cause-related book, and you're writing it to support other people, raise awareness, and you may not want to build a business around it. Or it could be a business book, and it could be your business pivot book. So you may be in a situation where you're doing something, you might be in a job, you might be running a business that you'd like to change, you'd like to perhaps reinvent yourself. And this personal story lends itself to you changing direction. Now, these kind of books are extremely rewarding. Now, They do add credibility to your brand, and you can build products and services around them. So slightly different to that is that you could write what I then call healing non-fiction. So in the personal story, you're writing the story so that you are, see, as you're writing it, you will heal, but you want to make an impact and you want to inspire other people. Whereas when you're writing healing non-fiction, it is probably a book that will never see the light of day. So imagine that you have been through some kind of crisis and you want to move yourself on. So this is about personal growth. And there's many therapies that you can do to help move yourself through trauma and healing. But one of the things that I've found very relevant in my life is writing has always helped me to heal. Now, you could argue that this is journaling, and journaling would serve the same purpose, and it might. However, when we're writing healing non-fiction, what we're doing is we're using the book planning process, and we are taking ourselves through this journey of writing each of the chapters. And through, so you imagine you're writing it for someone else, but actually, you meet with a coach and you talk about the chapter, and you then go and write the chapter. And as you go through it, you go through healing that journey in a linear process. And the very act of talking and writing with that purpose, with that intention, will enable you to explore your story, gain perspective and heal. Now, how do I know that this works? Because this is how I started my book coaching career. I taught journaling, and I taught some different kinds of processes. And what I discovered is several people came to me and said they wanted to write a book. And in fact, more than several people. And what I developed was a way of helping them to write a book that they would never publish. And I have to tell you, it was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Now, I still have people who come and do this with me, but often what happens is what starts out as a journey to heal in a book that's never going to see the light of day actually then becomes healing non-fiction, and they do eventually publish and build other products and services around it. But it's an amazing way to write a book. Now, another way is to write what I call healing fiction, and that's what I call creative life writing. And I absolutely love this. And currently I'm doing NaNoWriMo, which is the National November Writing Month. It's a challenge. You write 50,000 words for a novel during the month of November. And I did actually plan out my book, and it's morphed into something else. And it's I think I'm on chapter 5 or 6, I can't remember. And it's definitely becoming healing fiction. I'm having great fun writing it. And what you have to remember is that practically all fiction will contain something of an author's life experiences, or experiences that they've heard or witnessed from somewhere else. Only this morning I was watching a video on LinkedIn, and I thought, I am going to put that person's, whatever it was that they were doing, in my book. They know about it, and so I'm going to write them into my piece of fiction. And what's come up for me is that because I'm kind of being forced to write every single day, the things that need to be healed are coming up, and it's amusing me that these things have come up. And I'm also very grateful that I'm able to express myself through fictionalizing stuff that I've gone through. So it's a great way to get stuff off your chest. And of course, you know, you can change things, so you protect the innocent or not so innocent. So the other way of writing is to write fiction, and the purpose of this is to entertain, and your purpose is very much that you want to write stories perhaps around a particular theme or genre. So think of things like 50 Shades, Harry Potter, Confessions of. Now, I definitely never used to read the Confessions of, and that's definitely showing my age as well. But think of, you know, things like the Tudor periods. I went through a period of reading lots of historical fiction from Philippa Gregory, for example, murder mystery, thrillers, psychological, children's, teens, romantic comedy. All, you know, there is another endless list. Now, you might want to do this because you want to build a career as a fiction writer. You love to write, or perhaps it's a retirement dream, but you know, whatever you choose, whichever of those that I've kind of explained, you're only going to write it if your heart says that this is the right book to write right now. So let me have a think, and not let me have a think, you have a think, and let me know of what you're considering writing and why. And I'd really look forward to hearing about that. You can find me in several different places. My website is Book Brand Business, and my training site is the Soul Writers Academy over on Teachable.